Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Let that sink in. Not because your job doesn't matter, of course it does. Your job pays the bills. It feeds your family. It's where many of us spend most of our waking hours. But here's the thing, you are the engine, you are the driver, and if the engine isn't upgraded, tuned, and cared for, the car doesn't go far. A job is important. It gives structure. It brings in income. It helps you take care of your responsibilities. That's something to be grateful for. But there's a dangerous trap people fall into, believing that a job alone will bring fulfillment, growth, or long-term security. It won't. A job gives you a paycheck, but you build your future. A job can give you experience, but it won't automatically give you purpose, meaning, or personal strength. That's work only you can do. Think about this. If you lose your job tomorrow, who are you without it? That question shakes people because too many wrap their entire identity around what they do for a living instead of who they're becoming while doing it. You are not your job title. You are not your position on the org chart. You are not your salary. You are the values you practice when no one's watching. You are the mindset you wake up with. You are the growth you've committed to, not the results someone else pays you for. Every day, millions of people wake up, punch the clock, and do what's expected. But few wake up and ask, how do I grow today? The paycheck becomes the purpose, and when that happens, something inside us starts to shrink. We were not meant to be machines. Machines work jobs. Humans are meant to grow. You've probably heard of people who retire after 30 or 40 years at a company and find themselves lost, anxious, unsure of what to do next. It's not because retirement is bad, it's because their entire identity was tied to their role, not to who they had become while they were in that role. They developed skills for the job, but not wisdom for life. What if you flipped the script? What if your job became the classroom and your life became the real test? Every project at work could teach you patience. Every deadline could sharpen your discipline. Every difficult coworker could be a mirror showing you where you need to grow. Every failure could become fuel. Growth is not something reserved for personal time or weekends. It should be baked into your everyday mindset. Working harder on yourself means using your job as a tool, not your destination. Real growth is internal. You can't measure it on a spreadsheet, but you can feel it. You know it when you stay calm under pressure instead of snapping. You know it when you choose to listen before reacting. You know it when you stop comparing yourself to others because you're too focused on your own progress. Let's talk about Tina, a young woman working in customer support at a large insurance company. Most people in her role were just trying to get through calls and survive the day, but Tina approached it differently. She realized that every call was a chance to practice empathy. Every upset customer was a training partner in emotional intelligence. Instead of just memorizing policy scripts, Tina started reading books about communication and persuasion. She took notes on how to de-escalate tension. She watched TED Talks on body language and storytelling. 1 year later, Tina was promoted not because she followed the script better than anyone else, but because she grew into someone who could lead others, think critically, and bring calm into chaos. The job gave her a living, but the work she did on herself gave her a life. Growth always leaves a mark. It shows up in how you treat people. It shows up in how you handle stress. It shows up in your relationships, your health, your confidence. The danger of only working hard on your job is that your growth becomes dependent on someone else's permission. You wait for training, you wait for a raise, you wait for recognition, and in the waiting you shrink. When you work hard on yourself, you don't wait for opportunity, you prepare for it. You create it. This is where freedom begins. When you stop chasing approval and start chasing growth, everything shifts. You become valuable not just to your employer, but to your family, your community, and most importantly, yourself. And here's the secret nobody tells you. The better you get, the less you tolerate being in places that don't value growth. You stop settling. You stop shrinking to fit small roles. You start designing your life, not just surviving it. Your job is a platform. Your growth is the product. Don't confuse motion with meaning. Don't confuse busyness with progress. You can work 10 hours a day and still feel stuck if you're not expanding who you are in the process. The most important question isn't, how hard did I work today? It's, how did I grow today? When you begin to answer that question honestly, every day becomes a step forward, not just on the career ladder, but on the path to becoming someone you're proud of. Talent opens doors, skills get you noticed, certifications might land you the job, but none of those things guarantee you'll stay there. None of them guarantee you'll rise. What does? Growth, consistent, internal, personal growth. Most people think once they've learned the task, the job is done. They stop learning. They coast. They do just enough to meet expectations. That's the silent killer of progress, assuming the hard work is over because you've earned a spot. Getting in is only the beginning. The real test is staying relevant, staying sharp, staying ready. Think of athletes. The draft may be based on skill and statistics, but staying on the team, that's based on work ethic, attitude, discipline, ability to take feedback, and grow under pressure. Every season, someone new shows up with just as much talent or more. The ones who survive and thrive are the ones who never stop evolving. The professional world works the same way. A degree can get you an interview. A resume can impress a recruiter. A strong reference might help you land the offer. But what happens after you've been there 6 months, a year, 5 years? The truth starts to show. Are you adaptable? Can you learn new systems? Can you lead others? Can you think under pressure? Can you communicate clearly, especially when emotions run high? These are not technical skills. These are personal growth outcomes. People who grow internally develop resilience. They don't crumble when circumstances shift. They lead with stability. They stay grounded. They don't wait for the company to train them, they train themselves. They invest in their own capacity to handle more, to serve more, to create more. You've probably worked with someone who was incredibly skilled but had no patience, couldn't take criticism, or became defensive if the moment things went wrong. That person may have had the technical requirements, but not the emotional maturity to carry the responsibility. And over time, no matter how sharp their skills are, that lack of growth catches up. It's not always the smartest who succeed. It's the most adaptable, the most emotionally intelligent, the most consistent in their growth habits. Think of Marisol, a quiet operations assistant in a growing logistics company. She wasn't the loudest person in the room. She wasn't the most technically gifted either, but she did something that separated her. She paid attention. While others rushed through tasks, she noticed where inefficiencies were. She asked questions no one else asked. She read books on problem solving, communication, and leadership, not because anyone asked her to, but because she knew her value would increase if she increased herself. She built relationships with mentors. She volunteered for stretch projects. She worked on her mindset, her public speaking, and her time management. When the company began restructuring, they needed someone who could think strategically and manage people under pressure. They didn't go looking outside. They promoted Marisol, the one who had already been preparing herself behind the scenes. No one is entitled to elevation. You grow into it. Growth is a magnet. It attracts responsibility, trust, and influence. You may not be in control of promotions, layoffs, or external market shifts, but you are always in control of your own development. That's where your power lies. When you commit to growth, you stop living reactively. You stop waiting for the company to give you a reason to improve. You give yourself the reason. You realize that your value doesn't come from the position you hold, it comes from the person you're becoming. And here's the part most people miss: growth compounds. The book you read today sharpens your decision making next month. The fear you face today builds courage that shows up in tomorrow's crisis. The feedback you accept this week creates leadership capacity next year. Each moment of intentional growth becomes a layer not just on your resume, but on your character. This makes you irreplaceable in a way that goes beyond job titles, because people want to work with those who are clear-headed, curious, emotionally strong, and self-led. These traits don't show up on a diploma, they show up in your habits, your reactions, your presence. Growth changes how you show up in a room. You walk in with more confidence, not because of ego, but because you've earned it. You've done the work. You've become someone others can count on, not just because you're competent, but because you're anchored. When you grow, you rise, not always immediately, not always in a straight line. But over time, the compound interest of personal development separates those who keep moving forward from those who stall. The real measure of your success is not how many doors open, but what you do once you've stepped inside. No one stays in the same job forever. Titles change, companies shift direction, industries evolve. The role you have today might not exist 5 years from now. Even if you love what you do, it's not permanent. No job is. What's permanent is who you're becoming in the process. That's where your real security comes from, not from your job, but from the person you're building underneath the job. That's the version of you that can't be laid off, downsized, or outsourced. It's the version of you that carries forward no matter where life takes you. People spend years mastering the tools and systems of a role, but often neglect the deeper skills that last beyond any company policy. They become experts at a process, but they haven't invested the same time becoming experts at managing their own mindset, emotions, and habits. When that job ends, they feel like they're starting over, not because they don't have experience, but because they never built personal depth alongside professional skill. Think of the tech worker who's brilliant at writing code. She's known for solving technical problems in record time, but when her company was acquired and her role was eliminated, she was crushed. She hadn't built her network, she hadn't practiced interviewing. She hadn't developed confidence outside of her team's approval. She knew how to do the job, but she didn't know how to lead herself without the structure of the job. That's a painful place to be, and it's more common than we like to admit. On the other hand, there are people who lose jobs but never lose momentum. They keep moving, they adapt, they reinvent. Not because they had more resources, but because they had more resourcefulness. That comes from inner work, from choosing to grow beyond just the requirements of a job, from building a foundation that doesn't crack when the paycheck stops. The world is changing fast. Roles that were once secure are disappearing. Entire industries are being disrupted by automation, AI, and globalization. No one is immune, but growth is the one investment that always keeps paying off. You may not control the economy, but you do control how prepared you are for change. You control your perspective, your adaptability, your courage, your ability to communicate and lead. These qualities aren't tied to any job. They're part of your identity, and identity moves with you. A strong identity doesn't need perfect conditions to thrive. It doesn't crumble in uncertainty. It rises, adjusts, and continues forward with purpose. There's a reason why some people lose everything and come back stronger. It's not luck. It's who they became when no one was watching. They weren't just building a career. They were building character. They were reading, reflecting, learning how to handle stress, developing empathy, facing fears, becoming more disciplined. So when life threw a curveball, they didn't panic, they pivoted. They didn't need everything to stay the same because they had trained themselves to grow in any environment. This is what makes you recession-proof, not a bigger salary or a corner office, but the depth of your own development. You may lose the job, but you won't lose your voice. You may lose the position, but you won't lose your presence. You may lose the title, but you won't lose the leader inside you. That's what working on yourself gives you the power to carry your value with you wherever you go. You are the one constant in every chapter of your life. The more you grow, the more capable you become of facing the unknown with strength, creativity, and grace. Think of teachers who become entrepreneurs, engineers who become authors, athletes who become business owners. They took the discipline, the mindset, the habits they built in one field and applied them to a new one. Their success wasn't tied to the original job. It was tied to the growth they had committed to through that job. Every role you take is temporary, every project will end, every team will change, but the person you're becoming in the process, that's what lasts. That's why growth can't wait. Waiting until your job is at risk to invest in yourself is like waiting for your house to catch fire before you learn how to use a fire extinguisher. You don't prepare for change in the middle of chaos. You prepare through consistent personal work when things are steady, when things feel routine. That's when the real winners are made, in quiet moments, in invisible hours, in the decision to keep growing even when no one is watching. Working on yourself sounds simple. Read the book, go to the gym, take the course, meditate, journal, listen instead of reacting, say no to what drains you, say yes to what challenges you. But simple doesn't mean easy. Because personal growth, real, lasting growth, doesn't happen on the surface. It happens deep inside, and going there takes courage, it takes discipline, it takes honesty. It requires you to look at yourself not just in the mirror, but in the moments when no one else is around to applaud or critique. This is the kind of work that won't show up in performance reviews. You won't get a certificate for being more self-aware. No one's going to give you a promotion because you finally learned how to forgive someone, but the results, they will show up in everything else. A stronger mindset, better relationships, clearer focus, deeper confidence. These are the dividends of inner work, and they compound over time. Most people aren't willing to do it, not because they can't, but because it's uncomfortable. It requires slowing down, turning inward, facing things they've spent years avoiding. But growth never happens in the comfort zone. It happens when you do the hard thing, especially when the easy thing is right there, waiting. It's easier to scroll than to read, easier to blame than to reflect, easier to stay busy than to sit still and ask, what do I need to change? But distraction never leads to transformation. There's no shortcut to developing character. You can't outsource your growth. No one can meditate for you. No one can teach you patience without you experiencing frustration. You can't learn humility without being wrong. You can't learn resilience without facing failure. Think of it like working out. You don't build muscle by lifting the lightest weight in the gym. Growth only comes when the challenge exceeds your current strength. And emotional, mental, spiritual strength work the same way. You build confidence by keeping promises to yourself. You build clarity by saying no to things that once defined your identity. You build peace by letting go of what you can't control. All of that is invisible progress, but it creates visible change in the way you walk, talk, decide, and live. Inner work isn't about perfection, it's about presence, being aware of your patterns, catching yourself before reacting, choosing alignment over approval, moving with purpose instead of pressure. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to be honest about where you are and where you want to go. That honesty is the starting line. Think about Jamal, a manager at a growing startup. On paper, he was doing well. His team was hitting targets. His emails were sharp. His meetings were polished. But inside, he was constantly anxious. Every piece of feedback felt like a personal attack. Every mistake haunted him for days. He avoided hard conversations, smiled when he wanted to speak up, stayed late not because he had to, but because he couldn't turn off the voice in his head telling him he wasn't good enough. He didn't need a new role. He needed inner work. So he started therapy, not because something was broken, but because he was ready to grow. He began journaling in the mornings, just 10 minutes a day. He read one book a month. He started to breathe before reacting, ask questions before judging, and forgive himself when he messed up. Over time, people noticed. His team felt more supported. His decisions became clearer. His confidence wasn't louder, it was deeper. No one handed him a trophy, but his life changed. His relationships deepened. His stress lowered. He began sleeping better. That's what inner work does. It changes the atmosphere of your life from the inside out. There's no job, no promotion, no achievement that can replace that kind of transformation. You can be wildly successful on the outside and still be falling apart on the inside. That gap is where burnout lives. It's where people feel the pressure to perform instead of the freedom to be whole. Working harder on yourself means choosing the long game, not quick fixes, not band-aid solutions. It means asking, who am I becoming while I chase my goals? It's not glamorous. No one posts about the moment they finally learned to pause before yelling, or the night they cried through a journal entry instead of numbing out. But those are the moments that shift your life. You start to realize that self-respect is earned in private, not public. That emotional strength is a form of leadership. That the hardest work isn't in your inbox, it's in your inner world. You've heard a lot tonight, not just about working hard, but about working on the one thing that will never leave your side, yourself. Your job is important. It gives you purpose, stability, and a place to serve, but it is not your identity. It is not your potential. It is not your future that belongs to you. Your job may change, your title may change, but who you are becoming through it, that's forever. That's what the world can't take away. That's what gives you power, peace, and resilience no matter what season of life you're in. We live in a culture that praises hustle. But hustle without reflection is just motion, and motion without direction burns people out. Working harder on yourself means choosing growth over ego. It means building character, not just credentials. It means training your mind to stay calm in chaos. It means being willing to be uncomfortable now, so you can be unshakable later. You don't have to change your entire life overnight. You don't need a dramatic transformation. But you do need commitment to get a little better today than you were yesterday. To stay curious, to stay humble, to stay open. Because the return on that kind of investment never stops. Better habits turn into better days. Better days turn into better outcomes. Better outcomes turn into a better life. You want to elevate your career? Start by elevating your standards. You want better relationships? Start by becoming more honest with yourself. You want to feel more secure? Build the kind of inner world no job, no boss, no downturn can take from you. The real flex isn't how many hours you work, it's how well you know yourself, how deeply you lead yourself, and how intentionally you grow. Work hard, but work harder on you. Because the person you become in the process, that's the real reward. Thank you.